again, I go back to the corny analogy of people say, well, I don't need to look like James Bond. If you've ever fired a gun with a suppressor on it, it'll win you over. People ask me that, like, why do you want to suppress a 12 gauge? Because I can. Because I can. Because I don't want, if two guys come into my house, I don't want the second guy to hear what I do to the first guy. I want to, you know, it's gonna still be pretty damn loud, but that's the way I want it. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Chad Prather Show. I'm just confused and confounded at this point. I don't know what we're supposed to talk about on social media when literally everything you talk about is going to get you banned. I just received a notice yesterday from Meta, specifically Instagram, that says basically the last 12 things I posted up there were in some form of a violation of community standards. Well, you know how I feel about community standards. I think you just ought to flush them down the toilet. We can't talk about anything anymore. We can't talk about politics. We can't talk about political opinion. We can't talk about, protests or woke mobs or any type of firearms or pretty much everything's going to get you banned. So the idea of going on a platform and talking about the things that are your interests or your opinions, well, those days are long gone. If you want to use their platform at all, I guess you just have to water everything down to some kind of, milquetoast, vanilla, lukewarm conversation and just, I don't know, it becomes pablum. Well, I'm not interested in pablum. I like stuff. I like things that are real. I like tangible things. I like guns. I like crazy stuff that's going on in the world because it feeds my brain and my creativity, and sometimes we just like to laugh at it. Well, I don't know if you guys have thought about it, but from Washington, D.C. to your state politics to the big tech overlords and all of these platforms out there, all of it's run by bureaucrats. It's all run by people who have a say in your life that you never really wanted to have a say in your life. And that is the nature of the beast when we signed on to play this game. So one of the guys who has done something about the bureaucracy and the overreach, and he's constantly fighting it, is a guy who's not only a gun enthusiast, we've talked about that, but he's a pretty technical guy as well, and he created something that I've used many, many times. It's a program called Silencer Shop. I want to get into that a little bit, and to talk about it is my guest, Dave Matheny. Dave, welcome to the show. How are you, man?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. You are you're in Austin, Texas.
That's right.
And you've been there for a long time. But you were there in Austin. Why did you end up in Austin, Texas?
Yeah, seriously, we moved here with Intel, so it was just a work transfer. So it was
just came in there. Just came in there, and started doing computer stuff. Yeah.
Right.
So you're a tech guy. Right? I mean, I don't want to call you a computer nerd, but I mean, you guys make $1 billion, so it's to me that's a compliment at this stage in the game.
That's right.
So you came in Intel, and you're a computer guy, you're a guru, and you're one of those guys that also likes firearms, and you created Silencer Shop. Tell me what that is.
So yeah, really, it's we really have two major focuses. One, obviously selling silencers, but more than that is simplifying the process, right? Doing the paperwork, making it as easy as possible, just simplifying the whole process for people because it can be intimidating.
Yeah. When you say a silencer, a lot of people are going to say, oh, no, it's a suppressor. But either way, we're talking about, you know how it is. Don't you dare call a magazine a clip on social media.
And that's actually true.
You might as well burn a steak.
I'll say with silencers,
people go crazy on you, right?
That's right. Legally, they are called silencers. Technically, they are suppressors. So both terms are right.
Yeah.
And I tend to use them interchangeably.
Now, I'm the type person that believes that every firearm should be suppressed. Before we got on here, we were talking about the audio in our ears and just trying to hear each other. And Shy, my producer, he blasts me out. The volume's always kind of crazy because he thinks I'm old and deaf. But in most of the time, he's right on that. But I think things should be reasonably quiet. I think that we should suppress it. And it's become a fascination. But I'll be honest with you. I just picked up, and I'm going to pull them over here. I just picked up, now, not my Celsius can, although I'm sure you could figure out some kind of way to suppress something with a soda can. But I'm going to go from the smallest to the largest. I just picked these up last week. This is, let's see if we can see them. I'm wearing black, so I'm going to move over here to a little bit. So this suppressor here, this goes on a 22 Firefly pistol. And then I've got this suppressor, which will go on the end of a 28 Nosler deer rifle. And then I got this big daddy. Size matters, right?
Oh,
Size
yeah.
matters here. So this will go on the end of a Kel-Tec 12 gauge. So you can tell from a Celsius can how small that is, how big that is, and how large that one is. I mean, I don't know. People ask me that, like, why do you want to suppress a 12 gauge? Because I can.
That's right.
Because I can. Because I can. Because I don't want if two guys come into my house, I don't want the second guy to hear what I do to the first guy. I want to, you know, it's gonna still be pretty damn loud, but that's the way I want it. So the reason I bring these out is because I'm paid for these, and I've always used Silencer Shop. It's a kiosk in the store. You go, you download the app, you get your picture on there, fill out the thing, and they know who you are. And that's, you know, the process that you use when you go to buy a suppressor. I purchased these 13 months ago. It took 12 months for the stamp to come back and for me to actually be able to go to the store where these were, them to take them out of the vault, and me to have permission from the federal government to take these home with me. Now, talk to me about that process, what the problem is, what we need to do about it. Why does the government need permission to even know that we have these things?
Now,
talk to me about that.
I'll tell you on that, the whole idea of the way these are treated and registered is wrong. I would argue it's unconstitutional. I think that it should be all rolled back, right? But it's been in place since the 1930s. The odds of it changing in this environment are pretty much zero, right? We are doing some stuff through just lawsuits to hopefully try to make a difference. More at the state level at this point, though. You know, we're suing Illinois right now to try to force them to allow silencer ownership in the state, stuff like that. I'll tell you, on the wait times, you just missed it, because wait times have been running 9, 10, up to 14 months for years.
Yeah. And
literally just in the last few months, those wait times have dropped down to days. So if you were to buy a silencer as an individual,
another person told me that.
That's right.
Yeah, another person mentioned that to me. So I want to hear what you're saying on that, because somebody else just mentioned that to me recently. They said in some places, you know, because you buy it, and I want to talk about this. You can buy it as a trust, or you can buy it personal.
Yes,
right?
That makes a difference.
And they said as personal, they said some people are getting like a 24-hour turnaround.
That's right. The median wait for us, and we're doing hundreds of thousands of these, right? And the median wait is 2 days. So it's very, very fast as an individual. If you register as a trust, we're sitting just a bit over 3 months right now, which I tell you, 6 months ago, if you'd told somebody 3 months, that would have been unbelievable. We would have thought that was the pie in the sky. And now it seems like the long wait time. But you just got these literally took that.
Yeah, these three specific ones, and pretty much every firearm I have is suppressed. There's a few that are not, but very few. These particular ones took 12 months. It was June to June. And so, and talk to me, what's the difference between buying it personal or versus a trust?
It's really,
is there one merit or advantage to either of them?
Yeah, for almost everybody, and I get that the individual is faster, but I tell you, for almost everybody, a trust is a better way to buy. And it's because of possession, right? The way these things are treated legally, if you've got one on any kind of firearm, let's say it's a home defense gun, your wife uses it when you're not home, that's actually technically a felony. And in some places, they'll go after them. It's the same, you're out hunting with your son. He goes to one blind or in one area, you go to another. He's technically committing a felony if he registers an individual. A trust gets around all of that, allows you to have possession by really whoever you want, right? That trust really is, if you know anybody else, a trust is the way to go, right? Especially for family members.
So with that, you know, because it comes with a federal stamp, right? That's what we're after. We're getting the government's permission to have these. I mean, anytime I bring this up, I also bring up the bump stock ban and just the nonsense and the unconstitutionality of all of that. We'll talk about that in a minute if you want, but I got a question for you with that. But you know, this comes with paperwork. Legally, every time you take that gun, let's say I put this on that 28 Nosler deer rifle, and I take off to Wisconsin in October to go deer hunting, and should I take that paperwork with me and always have that paperwork with me in the presence of the suppressor? You know, what's the legality on that?
What I would recommend is especially with paper forms, I'd say keep them in a safe place. Keep a copy with you or a digital copy. With the electronic stamps, which it's been that way for several years now, just keep a copy on your phone. Essentially, that is the original, right? So as long as you've got it on your phone or printed out with it, you're good.
Yeah, because you know, a couple of weeks ago, I had had 3 emails that came in literally within hours of each other, all from the ATF, telling me, you know, there it was, a digital copy of the stamp, and I got to be honest with you, most people are not going to be happy about correspondence with the ATF, but I was overjoyed because now I could go get these. Yeah, I could go get these babies out of the safe, because I've had people, you know, who've said, "Oh, you might want to keep the paperwork with you." And I'm like, you know, why? You got the digital copies. So where does Silencer Shop come in? Why that step? When you started it, and how long have you had Silencer Shop when you began that?
We started in 2010, so it's been a little over 14 years now.
Okay. Why that step? What part do you guys play in the process? I walk in a store. Let's say I go to Texas Gun Experience up in Grapevine, Texas. My buddies Joseph and Jared Stanier own that. And let's say I go in there and I'm like, you know what? I need something for, you know, XYZ. Let me take a look, and boom, I'm going to spend, you know, $1,800 on a suppressor. And then they say, okay, you got to go over and do this. Where do you guys come in?
So there are several things. So it's, you know, you buy the silencer. We manage the fingerprint, getting the fingerprints. And once you've been fingerprinted once in our system, you're good. You're good forever. We just keep them on file, continue to use them. We review the paperwork to make sure you don't have any errors. Because people actually are surprised when they hear the percentage of errors of forms that go to the ATF. It's run as high as 20, 30+% of these forms get sent back for some type of error. So our error rate is incredibly low. We help the dealers manage the certification process, a lot of remote certification stuff now with e-forms. So we're basically simplifying. We basically, from the time you buy it, we kind of take over the transfer process, right? Just to kind of, like I said, kind of smooth the way.
Yeah. So you are kind of nerdy. See, I like that. We need people. We need brainiac people in our lives who know all the files to fill out and the files to form and stuff like that. Because left up to me, it just wouldn't happen. I would miss all of the T's and the I's to dot. Right. I wouldn't know what I should do. So you guys kind of make that an easy deal. And so you know, as we were sitting here, I went to Silencer Shop. I have the app, and I go to the registration page here. It's got, you know, my picture on there. It's got my registration type. It's got my name and address, and all. You know, it drives me crazy that the federal government needs all of this information, wants all this information, requires all of this information. But unfortunately, that is the world we're living in. You mentioned earlier about it being unconstitutional. Is there ever any way around it? I think with the size of bureaucracy, as I stated at the outset, with the size of bureaucracy running things, I don't think we ever get around that. How does that gel with the Second Amendment and where we can go from here? What are you guys doing to kind of fight that whole bureaucracy process.
Hey, I want you to stop what you're doing and listen to this. Your God-given freedoms are up for the taking, and even worse, those doing the taking, well, they're the same people who are sworn to defend your freedom. See, they think that they can violate your right to protect your own family. They think they can force their delusions onto your children, and they think that they can control the media and hide the truth. But you know what they can't take away? They can't take away self-reliance and peace of mind. Listen, you got water filtration? You should. You got a charged solar generator? You better. You got emergency food on your shelf? You need to get it now, and you need to get it from My Patriot Supply. Listen, having served millions of American families, My Patriot Supply is the most trusted name in survival, and for a dadgum good reason, folks. Listen, go to preparewithchad.com right now. Save $200 on their best-selling 3-month emergency food kit. It delivers over 2,000 calories a day, sealed inside practically unpierceable packaging, and it lasts up to 25 years. And did I mention that it's delicious? It actually is delicious. Go to preparewithchad.com, save $200 per kit, free shipping included. Preparewithchad.com.
I tell you, I've kind of come to the conclusion over the last few years. I mean, we were pushing really hard in 2015, 2016, and I don't know if you remember the HPA to kind of try to get suppressors completely out of this registration process, right? And it's, you know, we had the votes in the House, never had them in the Senate, but regardless, but I've kind of come to the conclusion that the only thing we can do to really truly deregulate silencers is to grow the market. Because the reality is the market is too small, right? If you look at the total number of silencers sold, it's pitiful compared to any other market. I think last year was like 425,000 sold to actual buyers, right? And that's for the entire year in the entire country. We just need it to be a bigger market than that for politicians to start taking it seriously. And that also exposes more end users to silencers, so they realize they're not as dangerous and scary as TV would have you believe, right? It's kind of a combination. I think growing the market really does get us to the goal of deregulation.
Yeah, and I know there are those out there who say, what's the purpose? I mean, what's the point? We're not trying to look like James Bond here. This is not, you know, there is a purpose. A tool has a function. A suppressor is a tool. I'll tell you quite honestly. You know, I have that 22 Firefly pistol. 22 long rifle bullets come out of it, and it's a 22. It's not an overwhelmingly loud gun, but you know, there's some pretty big skunks that run around in my area out here, and you know, I don't want the neighbors down the road thinking that, oh, you know, there's World War III's happened down there when it's really just an apocalypse against the skunks. You know, this deal right here brings it down to a whisper manageable sound, and so you know, it's a tool that you're utilizing, and so and I go back to the bump stock thing. You know, any redneck growing up in Georgia like I did. They know how to make an AR-15 fire pretty fast. You can use your belt loop and, you know, do some interesting things to make that trigger go a whole lot quicker. The bump stock ban, we watched as they, I don't know, gosh, I think when it was said and done there at the end, when they outlawed those, they melted down like 250 or 60,000 units of those things. I mean, just had to eradicate all of the inventory, and now they've brought that conversation back in terms of reinstating that and saying, okay, that ban was unconstitutional. You say that what we've got to do is the market for suppressors or silencers needs to match the market for firearms. We know the firearm market is through the roof, and it has been for quite some time now. And just, you know, it just went this way in terms of just escalation through the pandemic. And I mentioned Texas Gun Experience in Grapevine, Texas a little while ago. I mean, they opened up that store and immediately were running out of inventory and stock because they opened it right as the pandemic hit, and everybody just came in there and just cleaned them out. We saw that ammunition went through the roof. But this, you know, the market for these, and again, do you think it's just because people think they just simply don't need a suppressor on their firearm?
The market for suppressors is growing like crazy. It's actually growing faster than the gun industry, but it's You know, that
Really?
$200 stamp from a, you know, you look back, flashback 20, 30 years ago, there's been enough inflation to where that $200 stamp has actually started to seem affordable for people, right? That's not the limiting factor anymore. People start to think about the wait times, and now those are getting shorter. People start to think about, man, do I really want to register, right? It's a, so there are other hurdles now where previously it was the stamp. Now it's moved on to other items, but the market is growing very quickly. It's just starting from a very low place.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that a lot of people, again, I go back to the corny analogy of people say, well, I don't need to look like James Bond. If you've ever fired a gun with a suppressor on it, it'll win you over. You know, the people who are scared of guns or who are even anti-gun, I've always said the quickest way to convert them is take them to the range and let them shoot. There's a lot of fun in that.
Oh yeah,
and it is just so much fun to go do that. People don't understand if they've never done it. I encourage people, if you've never you know, fired around through a silencer, it's pretty addictive. It's almost like hitting a really good golf shot at one time. It brings you like, I'm going to quit this game, and then you hit the really good shot, and you're like, oh, I like this. This was fun. It felt good. Everything about it was right. It sounded right. I encourage people to, you know, do this, and I think that people maybe, correct me here, I think that people kind of say, well, there's certain things we don't need. Like, well, do we need a machine gun? Arguably, yes. Me personally, I'm okay with, you know, what was it Joe Biden said? You know, you don't own an F-15? Well, maybe I'd like to.
That's right.
You know, maybe I'd like to own a cannon. I don't see constitutionally, you know, based on the Second Amendment, where that should be infringed. If that's what I think, I can own a cannon. So, you know, things like this, people think they don't need them. What's your take on that when you have a conversation with somebody who kind of gives you that sideways glance about suppressors? I mean, I know you're deep enough in the gun world that you probably don't get that very much, but certainly there's people out there who'd say, I don't need that. What is your take?
You know, I get it more than you would think, because I'm involved in, I love youth hunting, right? But you get these kind of the older guys who are like, I've hunted my whole life without it. I don't need it. What you don't realize is hearing damage is cumulative, right? You throw that can on the end of the gun, you go hunting. Well, let's say you don't put the can on the end of the gun. You go hunting, you take that one shot in the day, your ears ring a tiny bit, but you don't really notice a difference because it's once. But over the years, you get to be 60, 70, 80 years old, and all of a sudden you can't hear your grandkids, right? If you had a can on the end of the gun, it completely eliminates that. And then the people who are against silencers will say, well, just wear earmuffs. Well, hey, have you ever gone out in the woods and gone hunting with muffs on? That sucks. You're walking around all day. It ruins the whole experience, right? It's hot. It's uncomfortable. Everything sounds digitized, even with the electronic ones. I like hunting because I like being outside. I don't like being in my earmuff cave, right? Man, I tell you, that completely solves it. I put them on there for my kids. They hunted with them. It just protects your hearing. They are absolutely a tool. And in some ways, I think they should be required. But because of this registration since the 1930s, the only exposure the average citizen has to silencers is through TV. They've seen James Bond, and that's it. So all these other arguments we're making are kind of landing on an audience that's like, doesn't really get it until they've been exposed to it. That's why I've kind of come to the conclusion that we need to grow the market so people at the range see them, people out hunting see their buddies with them, people hear them, see them in action. I think that will win people over because they are really cool.
Yeah, they are cool, and that's a great point you make. Now, I live with tinnitus. I have constant ringing of the ears, and I have it because I've spent my entire life shooting, specifically hunting, and we grew up, we didn't grow up shooting big animal. We grew up bird hunting, dove, quail, and you know you're shooting a lot. Hopefully, you're shooting a lot during the day. You're firing off a lot of rounds versus going out. You shoot a deer and it's hopefully just one shot. You go out and you go out and limit on dove, which is 12, and you're going to miss a few. You might shoot 30 times that day. Well, you're hearing that in that ear, and it's going to ring for pretty loud for days after that. I live with constant tinnitus because as a kid, hearing protection wasn't an emphasis. As an adult, in my former life, I worked for a company where we sold hearing protection. That was our main deal. I was a safety guy, and we sold hearing protection. And I learned a lot about, the audiology and the different types of. Listen, try wearing earmuffs with a cowboy hat on. It's impossible to do. So now you're twisting up the foam and shoving that in your ear. It's not comfortable, and you're doing it. And you're wearing that all day long. It's not comfortable. So you make a valid point on that. And that's why people say, why would you suppress a shotgun? Well, if you've spent your entire life shotgunning, you're not going to put it on a Benelli over under 20 gauge where you're going out and you're shooting quail or dove. I understand that. But if you're duck hunting, another story.
Yeah.
There's certain aspects to it for it just saves yourself a whole lot of stuff. I just hate that you have those extra steps to go through, but I mean, that is the world we're living in, right?
Yep. Yeah, there's not much we can do about it. And we're trying to get those out, right? Get it to what I would consider to be constitutional.
Yeah. Well, you make a valid, and back to your point, with what you said, the fact that market is growing even faster than firearms, I have to give you the credit on that. I mean, folks like you guys over at Silencer Shop, y'all have raised awareness. You've streamlined the process. You've made it easier. I think back to like going out and buying a car. Remember how difficult it was to go buy a car? You spent 6 hours negotiating with a guy who had to keep going back to the GM's office and come back with another price. And what is it going to take today to get you in this baby? And it was just a pain in the ass. And now, now you can buy a car online. I mean, you buy the thing and the thing shows up at your house, the whole deal. And it's you guys in a much bigger way, because now we're dealing with the federal government's aspect of it. You guys have made it a whole lot easier. So, thank you for doing that. And I hope that we can continue to, continue to streamline that process even more. Because again, going from 12 months to 3 months, that's huge. I mean, if you say I can go out and buy a suppressor with a trust in 3 months, that's impressive. It actually makes me want to go shopping. It makes me want to go shopping today. It makes me want to use Silencer Shop today. And I'm not telling you I'm not going to. I may do that because I got to go see the gunsmith later today, as a matter of fact.
Nice. Yeah, this is the time to get them. These wait times I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah. Yeah, my thing now is I have to go out and get the mounts that'll go on there so that I can attach these. And then I've got that 28 nozzler. I've got to get a gunsmith to break it down to the threading on the barrel that's underneath the coat. So, again, it's all fun for me. I enjoy it. So how can people, be more aware of, or what should people be more aware of? How can they support what you guys do as a business? How can they get behind, any initiatives that you've got going? And what's the best thing to not only support but promote at this point in time?
The biggest thing that we've got right now that really it costs a lot. I mentioned before, we're suing the state of Illinois to try to force them to allow silencer sales. If we win there, which they
don't allow them at all, right?
They don't.
Illinois doesn't allow them at all.
That's right. And it's only because of Chicago, right? Illinois as a state is a conservative state, but Chicago is not.
Right.
So if we win that lawsuit, that allows us to kind of expand that to New York, California, the other states where they're not allowed. This is a big deal. So if people want to support that, ASA Foundation, go out to the ASA Foundation and donate the lawsuit, right? I mean, that's what I would recommend. Seriously, when you buy from us, a lot of that money goes towards supporting this lawsuit too. So I really think this is an opportunity for the industry.
Yeah. Well, and then what's crazy is, Chicago already has the strictest gun laws. Illinois does. I know people who, again, I travel for a living. I'm on the road every weekend somewhere doing live shows and in front of live audiences. In fact, I'll be in Illinois next week, right in the middle of it. And I know people who, when they travel, because they travel with their firearms, I know people who will drive around the state of Illinois so that they don't get pulled over with a firearm in their possession in that state, which is absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion.
I don't understand. Don't you feel safer, Illinois? I mean, come on. There's no crime there, right?
None whatsoever. You know, we just did a show in Joliet, Illinois, which is south of Chicago. And, you know, I go up there and I'm always, you know, I talk to the people in those areas. And, you know, the guns that are being used for violent crime in places like Chicago, they're not coming from Illinois. They're coming from places like Indiana. They're coming from places that have more of a lax gun restriction. And we were driving the interstate from Indiana. We were headed actually from Indianapolis to the Chicago area. And I said, I wonder how many guns have been run on this interstate, you know, back and forth, traded illegally. And so it's these, to me, it's these legal restrictions that are causing more of the violence, more of the criminality, more of the illegal gun, you know, trading and selling than it is, say, you know, what is it they like to talk about, you know, the lax requirements at a gun show. Or
yeah, that's all made up. That's not even real.
Right. Yeah, they come up with a false narrative. They set up a straw man. It doesn't exist in reality. I went the other day. I was at Texas Gun Experience. I was picking up these suppressors, and while I'm in there, being the person that I am, I always come up with something where I go, you know, I think I need a .357 revolver, really small. And they said, well, we've got a Lady Smith, a Smith & Wesson Lady Smith. They said, but it's got lady on it. And I said, I don't care if it's got lady on it. I like the profile of this gun. Let's do it. And so I still fill out the form. Okay. Even in Texas, I still fill out the form. I have my reasons for why I've done that. You know, and I've got some issues with the state of Texas on why I'm not carrying one of those concealed carry deals and all that stuff. And that's a long other story. And it's also nobody's business. But I still fill out the form. Well, every time I fill out the form, put the thing in there, there's a delay. There's a delay. I have my idea of why there's a delay on me, but there's a delay. Sometimes it's taken a week for that form to come back on me. The guy looks at me and he goes, is this, do you ever get kind of a hold on your deal? I said, yep, it happens. And he goes, okay. It eventually came through while I was still there in the store. But the fact that that happened is still a pain in the ass. But I'm sitting there going, you know, I want to know where these people are who say it's so easy just to walk into a store and just buy a gun and you're out like that. Because I don't know about you, but it's not the case. It's simply not the case, this idea that anybody that wants to can just walk up to somebody and buy a firearm and the federal government doesn't know about it. If you're buying it legally, that's simply not the case, right? So they've built that entire straw man, which is ridiculous to me. You know, I'm of the mind, yeah, I think you should be able to have a machine gun. Anybody that's fired machine guns know that it ain't what you think it is, first of all. You ain't accurate with it. I can tell you that. Nobody's out there just blowing through 30-round magazines because, you know, and then it's not like the movies where you never run out of ammo. If you've loaded enough of those magazines and fired through that thing in 3 seconds, you know that it ain't this sexy as you think it is. And then, you know, things like suppressors. Again, as I said earlier, I think every gun you own should be suppressed. So if it can take one, it should have.
That's right.
Right. If it can mate, it should mate. That's the way I view it. So, you know, places like Illinois, it's a mess. California, it's a mess. New York, it's a mess. So many other places out there, it's just crazy. I for that reason alone, I don't understand why people live in those places.
Yeah.
And it's hard. I was just in California last week talking to a group, and these topics always come up. So. Man, I appreciate what you've done and what you're doing, and I do encourage people to get on and support what you're doing in Illinois. You know, it's unfortunate that we got to fight them through the courts, but if that's what we got to do, then that's what we got to do. What's next for you? What's going on? I mean, I will say over the years of using Silencer Shop, even the app and the utilization of that thing has gotten even easier. What's next for you guys?
This year we are rolling out a ton of new software and processes, and it's kind of exciting. You'll start seeing stuff. It really probably around next month, right? It's everything from website portals, new kiosk software, the whole works, right? Where it's simplifying, trying to once again kind of just reduce the overhead. People getting in, make it as easy, simple, streamlined as possible. So we have a lot coming this year in the second half.
That's good. That's good. I like it. Yeah, I've kind of migrated with you guys from having to walk up to the kiosk and put everything in there to using the app on the phone. So, and every year I'll update my picture. And
That's right.
Never a good picture. So this is what I love. This is why we need guys like you, guys that got, that came in through the world of computers. You took what you knew about technology, you combined it with a love for shooting and firearms, and we've got Silencer Shop. And I love it, man. Thank you for doing what you do. And maybe at some point in time, I don't know, you're pretty indoctrinated at this point. You're probably going to stay in Austin. But Try to fix that place too while you're over there.
Yeah. I tell you what a mess, right? I've seen the like transformation, and it's actually really sad. Yeah. It makes you want to move.
It does. I don't know how anybody would ever want to be there. I'll be in Marble Falls in a couple of weeks. We're doing a show over there. We're usually in that area about twice a year, and then occasionally I will go to downtown Austin to do a show there. I don't want to go. It's like Zombieland down there. It's like West Hollywood met Zombieland. You got people laying in the street, and then these rich people stepping over them on the way to their Maserati. It's wildly insane. So we can complain about Chicago and LA and all those places, but man, we got it right here in Texas too. Hey, let me ask you before I let you go, is it easier to do what you do because you're in Texas, or does that even matter?
I really think it kind of doesn't matter. Texas is the largest silencer market in the country, but Texas is the largest of everything in the country because it's the biggest state. Right. I always laugh at that.
Yeah. Yeah. Compared to California, California is big in terms of their population, and there's some good people in California. I always say there's great folks over there as well. They just really get screwed by their bureaucracy in their big cities. But because of the restrictions they have in that state, obviously they can't compete even with their population size like Texas has with our, 33, 34 million people. It depends on how many illegals you count into that. But there, we don't know how many people are actually in the state. But if you look at the state of Texas, I could see where it would have to be a pretty big market. But I guess as long as we're dealing with the federal government, do you think with this election cycle in 2024, let's say things stay the way they are right now. You've got Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. In this, I'm not asking you for an endorsement, but do you see where one over the other will make it easier or harder specifically, or will things stay the same regardless of who gets in the White House?
I suspect on this, I think things stay the same. I think what kind of worries me about Kamala, and it's the same as Biden, and not to get into politics, but man, those guys they've gone so far in the executive orders that it's they're kind of to the point where they're just making up laws, right? And I know everyone gets fought in the courts, but you have to deal with the consequences of it while it's getting fought. They're causing a lot of damage to the economy in general, right? Through all these executive orders. And I would hope that if Trump gets in there, he prioritizes making that not as easy, right? The whole executive order thing.
Well, I go back to the bump stock thing. I know the guy who started that industry. I know the guy. I was privy to the information and what was going on whenever he had to melt all those down and bury all that stuff. I mean, it was a huge loss in terms of a private business. I mean, just the inventory alone goes into the millions of dollars. And for a private citizen who starts an industry, for them just to come in and say, okay, you're out of business, and not only out of business, everything you've invested has now got to be set on fire, basically. You're right with these executive orders, and I also agree with you. I don't know that. I don't think anybody in the White House. I don't think anything really changes. I wish it would. There's so many things I wish would change, but I just don't think anything is going to change.
It's just gone so far down
which
this
is crazy
road.
to me. Yeah. Yeah, and that's what's crazy to me is you have all these debates about who's coming for your guns, and I don't think anybody's coming for your guns. I think it's just going to be harder and harder that they're just kind of dissuaded by the process. I don't want to wait 12 months for a suppressor. I don't want to, I don't want to fill out all the paperwork. I don't want to go through the rigmarole that it takes to do all of these things just to be a gun owner.
Yeah.
It's so I think we lose by attrition,
anti-gun stuff, it's genius because they make it a little bit harder and then they just wait.
Mm-hmm.
Time solves the problem for them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. And so folks, they just kind of lose their passion for it, lose their lust, if you will. And it's like, So either way, you've convinced me. I'm going shopping today. I gotta go right by my gunsmith. I gotta drop some things off, and so I'm gonna test your deal on this, Dave. I'm gonna see if I can get one with a trust in 3 months. We'll see what happens. I'll follow up with you on that.
Awesome, that'll work.
I love it. Hey, we're encouraging everybody, head over there and silencershop.com, right?
That's right. Exactly.
Is the deal, and I encourage people to get the app, check it out, take a look at it. Maybe you've never thought about, adding that to one of your firearms. Give it a shot. Give it a shot. Right now, I think is the window for you to do that. And Silencer Shop is the only one that I know of. There's no other as far as I'm concerned. Like I said, I've used you guys for years, and will continue to do so with every purchase. So thank you for doing what you do. And if we can ever do anything to help support you or push anything, don't hesitate to let me know, man. But encourage people to get involved with that legal battle that's going on with Illinois, because you know what? The people of Illinois, there's good folks up there. You're right.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good state. It's a good state. They get ruled and reigned over by places like Chicago. So,
that's right.
Dave Matheny, brother, I appreciate you, man. Keep Austin weird, I guess. It's pretty damn weird.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I'd love to run into you sometime, shake your hand, and I'm sure we'll do that sometime in the near future.
All right.
Hey, guys, I want to encourage you, head over to silencershop.com, take a look at it, check out all the things that they've got going on. You can find me, watchchad.com. That's where all the fun stuff is. Find me out on the road doing the live entertainment thing. We're having a good time all over the country, and I appreciate you guys so much. Go to our podcaster offer. Ratings, reviews are always appreciated. Give us 5 stars. That's what we deserve. And we'd love to hear from you at thechadprathershow.com. And in the meantime, I want you to take care of yourselves and look out for one another. Share this episode with family and friends and all your gun enthusiasts out there. Education is a huge part. And just knowing what's out there and what your resources are, it will help you a lot as an American. So we appreciate you. We love you. God bless you. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye.